Hello, everyone. This is Alex Tremble, and man, oh man, today is a good day. See, today I have a phenomenal guest with us, and I promise you, after our conversation, you're gonna want to have some tea. She may talk about that in a little bit, but I have the sense that I'm gonna want some tea after this. Um, this this phenomenal individual is Mita Mallick, and she is the global head of inclusion, equity, and impact. And we're going to talk about that inclusion, equity, and impact at Carta, a global equity management company, and she is also the co-host of the Brown Tabletop and talk, and that's actually how I became familiar with her. And I was listening to some episodes. So, look, I can't wait to get this started. So, how are you doing, Miss Mita?
I'm doing great, Alex. Thank you for reaching out and having me.
Look, I'm so glad you said yes.
Oh, such a kind introduction. Thank you so much. Thank you. It's very kind of you.
Well, madam, I'm going to ask you to just explain a little more about what you do. 'Cause I do have some questions on your titles and whatnot, but let's start off with the podcast, right? You're the co-host of the Brown Table Talk, and to be completely honest, I was a bit disappointed. See, I went there and I heard the empowerment stuff, and I heard a lot of leadership and advice and career advice. I heard a lot of really great content, but given the name Table Talk, I was assuming we are going to talk about some entanglements or something. Is that not what we're talking about?
Well, the podcast that I started with my friend DC Marshall is really a reflection of our deep love, respect, and admiration for each other. And over the years, the crap that we faced in our careers as women of color. And so we wanted to start this podcast to help women of color think about how they can not just survive, but thrive in their workplaces, and also a place for allies to show up and understand some of these stories and understand what we go through and how they can show up differently and do better and be better. So that's our objective with the podcast.
Well, I definitely believe you're serving that objective. My first question is the episode I listened to first. You
Yes.
talked about a concept of free is canceled.
Free is canceled, coined by DC Marshall. Yeah, free is canceled.
I don't know. I don't know. It sounds good, but is it real? What is free is canceled?
What we talk about in this episode is the theft of intellectual property. With, hey, I want the 3-year strategic plan for what you do when you get the job. Well, give me the job first, and then I will tell you. And also just a lot of calls I get from people who I don't know at all to pick my brain without any offer for compensation. I think, Alex, the distinction is I am here for my brain to be picked. I will give my ideas for my community and my friends and people who I know. But I think it gets very dangerous when you don't know people, and that's the first thing you ask is for their ideas or for something from them, if that makes sense. I can't hear you, Alex.
So of course I clicked the mic mute. Everyone, I still am messing up this whole muting thing.
That's okay.
In 2022. This is crazy, everyone. So the question was, I hear you on that. My question is, isn't free almost a necessity though? Like, how many people were able to break into areas, who were able to show how smart they were and they were worth hiring or working with by providing free? Is there a line where free is okay and there's a line where free is not?
I think like I said, if you know somebody and you have deep relationships, if you have a history, that's different, right? Yeah. I'm talking about cold calls and messages. I'm talking about my friend DC Marshall, who some big consulting firm is doing a DE&I report, which we talk about in the podcast. They want to interview her. They want all of her ideas, but they're not going to attribute her.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
You want to get all of the trends from the expert. But so that's a great way to be like, yes, Dee, we want all of your trends and views, and we're going to attribute it to you and to your company so that there's something that is mutually beneficial here. And so that's what I think. And listen, have we all done unpaid internships? Yes. Have there things, I think what you're talking about is like, you might do something for free for a friend to help you get started, to build your business. I have friends who've started coaching consulting businesses, either discounted or free, coaching services so they could get a really good testimonial from
Yeah.
somebody.
Yeah.
That's the difference. Do you see? There is some sort of exchange that's happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I saw a video from it was Rick Ross the other day, the rapper Rick Ross, and he was talking about how he provided free marketing for I think it was Jay-Z or Jay-Z or P Diddy's brand actually for a year without any payment. Then all of a sudden P Diddy was like, you're you know you're awesome. Here's a check. Let's keep this rolling. And he was talking about, and again, I think we all agree, well, maybe not we all agree, that on the younger side, or when you're trying to enter into the workforce, you may have to do those free interns and so on and so forth. But then I've spoken to a lot of people who are on the other side of their career, who they're in their prime making career. And they're like, look, they're like, free is canceled. I'm not doing nothing for free. So no, we're not doing it.
We're not doing it, especially if you are a business owner and this is your livelihood, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think this happens a lot with diversity, equity, and inclusion consultants,
Yeah.
individuals with expertise. Would an accountant do something for free?
Mm-hmm.
Would a doctor? Would a lawyer? Most of them would charge a consultation free. Not everyone. Some attorneys would say, hey, I'll do a free complimentary service. But I think that there is that, just the trend I'm seeing in the marketplace, just watch for that. And as I share in the podcast episode, I have somebody, Alex, this person never even looked at me in the eyes in graduate school.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden shows up in my LinkedIn messages asking for what I would consider to be serious consulting services and advice. And I asked what compensation was. And this person almost like flipped out, gaslighting me, being like, we went to school together. I can't believe you charged me. And I was like, you didn't even talk to me in school.
Yeah.
You didn't even look at me in the eye in the hallway. And now, so then it's like, almost like, I'm like, but what you're asking for is a pretty significant amount of work. It's not just a coffee chat.
Mm-hmm.
And as I talk about in the podcast, I have a full-time job. And so many times when I'm asked to do things, I don't have a lot of time. I give it to a nonprofit, Women Rising. And I ask those donations to be, directly given to that nonprofit out of Jersey City, New Jersey. But yeah, I mean, it is a practice that I believe needs to stop.
Well, what do you recommend? Again, you are a phenomenal leader. You've not only serving in an executive role now, but you've served in a number of other senior executive roles. What do you recommend for those individuals who are trying to navigate their own careers and get to that next level?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to first start with leaders who have power, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you are hiring right now in this marketplace, stop with the 25 interviews and stop with the interviews where you're asking people to prepare 10, 15 pages worth of decks for roles they haven't gotten yet. There's other ways to test expertise and understand experience. So that's one. If you are a leader who has access to a paycheck, to a budget, don't be, squeezing your suppliers, right? If I'm a small business owner and I say my fee for this is $10,000, there's probably a reason. Like, I'm not a large public company where I'm getting so much business at scale that I can offer discounts, right? So honor the cost that someone gives you, and then don't make them feel bad about it. And also for that same leader, when you're doing requests for proposals, that's also not your Alex moment to try to get free ideas, right? Like, and I've talked to my friend Dee about this. She gets a lot and she'll flip them to me. I said, don't do it. They basically want you to solve the problem and do the work before you get the check.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think to the individuals who feel like they might be having their work stolen or they might be taken advantage of, I think, Alex, you make a good point. You have to set boundaries for yourself. I would offer that, it's perfectly fair to ask if someone is asking you externally for something that's more than just a coffee chat, ask them. Be like, what are your intentions?
Yeah.
Is there compensation? You can always say, thanks for thinking of me, and I'm going to be passing. That's a clear way to do it. Yeah. And I would say, like, when you're working in an organization, make sure you protect your ideas. Don't text that idea. Don't Slack it. Create a doc. Document it, right? I learned that the hard way in my career. It still might get stolen.
Mm-hmm.
But, that's just a way to protect your intellectual property and what you're creating.
What's crazy is I didn't realize that till earlier, mid-career. I guess my age, I'm still technically mid-career, but I was writing these documents and these reports and proposals for, secretaries, undersecretaries, so on and so forth. And I finally worked for one supervisor who's like, why isn't your name on the bottom of this? I'm like, oh, well, you're the manager, right? Just put your name on it. says, no, you take credit. You did this. And
Yes.
I don't feel like many people,
No.
like no one told me to do that before.
Yeah. And so listen, as you're bringing up, there are hierarchies in organizations. I'm often doing work where I don't get to present the work. Not so much in my career now, but certainly early mid-career.
Mhm.
And so it's my job as a leader. If I go in and present something on behalf of the team, it's my job to say, these individuals couldn't be here. I want you to know Alex did this analysis.
Mhm.
I want you to know so and so came up with this recommendation, right?
Yeah.
And so just to, I say our names when we're not in the room, say our names when we're not in the room. And that's servant leadership. And I hope more leaders are doing, Alex, what your former manager did for you. That's so important.
Well, so again, on the other side, from an organizational standpoint, I'm always torn with this because, so I'll just say back to the National Park Service, there was a question. There was, okay, we have so many dollars, we have so many millions of dollars, whatever. We can employ this many number of youth with a good pay number, pay grade, whatever, right? Or we can employ a larger number of youth and reduce the pay. And like what you're talking about right now is like, hey, pay what people are worth, pay, the organization what it's worth of your contract. Like, where is that line between saying, hey, look, I wanted to, I guess, do more help for more people. That means I gotta reduce it a little bit.
I mean, you have to value people for what they're bringing in to the table and what you're going to ask them to, even if it's an internship. We know, Alex, from a US perspective, I mean, inflation is through the roof. How are you going to be an intern getting, I don't know, $1,000 a month and live in New York City and
Mhm.
try to pay rent and try to eat something other than ramen noodles and try to work and pay for the subway and all these things? It's just, you're doing a disservice to the person. You're doing a
Yeah.
disservice. And
Yeah.
so make sure that you can cover people's costs. I think for internships, no one's looking to make a profit. You're starting, it's when you start, you want that experience, you want that company name, but at the
Mhm.
same time, you've got to eat, you've got to pay your bills. And not everybody has family or the means. I certainly didn't, for someone to put me up in an apartment all summer long, rent free.
Yeah.
It's not how it works. So companies need to do better, provide accommodations, right? Provide
Mhm.
housing stipends on top of the internship stipend, provide meals. There's all sorts of things you can be doing.
So you mentioned inflation, which then clicked a light bulb in my head because I think I almost had like heart palpitation. Um, Inflation is high, and not only is inflation high, but um, the data shows that we are. I think we're actually literally already in the recession, but we're at
Yes.
least we're heading towards a recession. I'm doing those finger quotes in the air right now. Um, So the reality is a lot of the work you do, you are trying to you're working on programs to keep people engaged, you're
Mhm.
on in equity, inclusion, and so on and so forth. How are you or have you started thinking about how do you engage and keep the workforce engaged and keep making good progress on that inclusion and so on and so forth when we have a recession, when resources start to get pulled back?
I think inclusion's a driver of the business. I think it'll be more and more important, especially as we hit harder economic times, because there'll be less growth to be had. And it's like, okay, who are you talking to? Who are you
Yeah.
serving? Who are you excluding and why? From at least Nielsen, one source from a US perspective, the multicultural consumer has over $3.2 trillion of spending power. So will some of that decrease? Sure, but some of that will still be there.
Yeah.
And so it is a little bit like the chicken and the egg, right? Like what came first? But you have
Mhm.
to continue to fund these things. You must.
But But do we, no, I'm joking. So I asked the question also because I think it was the Federal Reserve
Yeah.
came out saying that, hey, like companies should stop giving pay increases right now. They should start implementing hiring freezes. And a question I've been talking about with a number of different leaders, such as yourself in this area, is staff have been wanting across the board, and rightfully so. Inflation is crazy. Minimum wage has not kept up with the cost of living across the country.
Right.
People have been wanting more pay. People have been wanting more benefits, but those things cost money. And so, how do you navigate those two? keep employee engaged, because you got to, because you don't want to lose your great talent, right? Like, you got to
Yeah.
do something, but you also don't want the organization to falter,
You
because
have to
everyone
make
gets hurt.
some hard choices, I think, once again, we're uncharted territory because it's a strange economy that we're in, isn't it, Alex? Where there's so
Hmm.
many, we're in a recession, the cost of living is just, mind boggling. And yet there are hard to fill jobs. And yet it is still, in many cases, an employee's market. And so it's this, especially for highly skilled labor and hard to fill jobs,
Yeah.
you are better off giving a raise to the person who is there, who's asking for it, than trying to figure out on the back end, how do I replace Mita? Because Mita
Mhm.
was highly skilled and now it's going to cost me even more to replace. So that's the
Yeah.
conversation, right? Because what people don't think about is like, oh, Mita keeps asking for more money. Let her go. We'll
Yeah.
find someone else. The cost to fill my job and the cost of working with recruiters, search firm, whatever, end to end
Mhm.
onboarding, training,
Yep.
that's going to be more costly in the end than the raise I was asking for.
Mhm. Mhm. Absolutely.
And the lost
Absolutely.
time for the work, right? The lost time. What we also don't, if I have a highly skilled worker, I have a skill set that is very difficult to find. In the time I've left, you're trying to replace me. Who's going to do that work? And then you're burdening the individuals who are left to try to cover what I was doing.
I mean, these are, I jokingly say this, but I also say, like, this is why, like, when you get to this level of leadership, the higher you go in the organization, the more difficult the challenges are. My belief is because you really should push the decision making process and authority as low as possible, right? Give people autonomy to make those decisions that are close to the ground. And as you're sharing right now, making these are really tough and difficult decisions that leaders have to make. And I guess my question for you next is, you know, you are someone who cares about people. Like, you truly care about people. Um, have you have you ever been in a situation where you've had to reduce a workforce, and how do you deal with that personally? Because these are people, you know?
It hurts a lot. These are people's livelihoods. And sometimes you're in positions where you don't have a choice. And people deserve the support and love and respect to move on to their next chapter. And I think we've seen that a lot on LinkedIn, especially where companies are having layoffs and people showing up for each other.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard X company has let go of X%. I'm here. I have a network. Please reach out to me. And so you do it with as much respect and grace as you can. These are not easy decisions. And, we're living in this time, hybrid, remote, back to the office, not, there's big conversations to be had right now about getting rid of real estate. That's big cost savings, right? I don't know how that impacts the real estate market if everyone does that, but, like, that's another, right? So
Yeah.
thinking about how you can solve for now what's happening when you talk about employees who are asking for and have earned and deserve a raise. How do you find that money?
I'm so glad that you answered the way you did, and I knew you would. Um, I still remember my first quote unquote real internship. I was an HR intern working at this car manufacturing plant, and it was 2017, so we were just hitting into the recession, and unfortunately, um, as the HR intern, it was my job
Wow.
to send all those letters to people who were being laid off.
Mm,
I was like 20 at the time, maybe.
mm,
This tradition that this organization did was everyone who got hired, you had to work on the floor. So when you worked on the floor for the first 2 weeks, you met these people. You knew they had families.
yeah,
And it was so hard to be the person drafting all these things and sending and knowing who was being laid off.
right.
Um, and and yet people were still in high spirits because the company did right by people.
To write by people.
They didn't hide it to the last minute. They tried their best to maneuver finances. They shut down, wasn't 24 hours a day. They shut down, like, they did everything they could to be respectful of people and honor people. And that's what it sounds like you're talking about. Even in these challenging times, we have to respect and honor people.
People. And Alex, you just reminded me of a memory I have from early in my career where I was let go, and it was quite painful. It was the typical, come meet me in conference room 5. I was like, huh, why am I going to conference room 5? I walk in and there's the vice president and there's HR. And there wasn't a lot of kindness and compassion, because afterwards they walked me to my desk with security people, made me feel like I had done something wrong.
Yeah.
And no one ever reached out afterwards to see how I was doing, at least not the leadership. I had other friends who looked out for me. And so clearly, do I blame that VP or that HR person? Of course not. That was just a decision they had to make. But I wish that they had more grace and compassion, and just to say, hey, if you ever need anything, like, feel free to reach out, or to even check in on me. It's that I think is the worst, when a layoff happens and it's like you did something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which you feel anyways. And so how you just showed up is amazing in your story about how you showed up for the community there.
Well, again, I'm loving this conversation. You broached a topic that I hadn't thought about at all. But now I'm gonna go down this path. I have already been layoffs. There are already, so we're talking about, not we literally, but when we, the bigger we, are
Yes.
talking about recessions, we're talking about cutting of staff, or reducing of staff, and so on and so forth. This has already happened to some people.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'd love to hear from you. Do you have any thoughts or advice to someone who may already has been laid off and they're listening to this right now? Like, how did you pick yourself up and position yourself for your next opportunity?
That job wasn't your identity. That job wasn't your identity. It took me too long to realize this. And you need the time and space to heal. It's grief. It's a type of grief. We don't talk about it enough.
Yeah.
There's such embarrassment and shame and anger, all sorts of emotions.
Yeah.
But once you can work through that, to reach out to people and let them know that you're looking, that it's not your fault. And that really start thinking about, like, I would just start with the spreadsheet of all the people I know, neighbors, family members, in-laws, friends, people from school, alumni, former bosses, former colleagues, and just start reaching out and start creating a schedule for yourself and start activating your network to let everyone know what you're looking for. And that's important, to have your story, your career wins, and what's the type of role you're looking for. What are the type of things you're open to?
These conversations, you know what? I'm going to say it. Look, every single one of these conversations, generally speaking, don't anyone call me out, I might be wrong, but most of these conversations always circle back to the importance of building those relationships and having those relationships.
Yes.
Yet so many people feel like networking, I'm going to use the N word, networking. No one wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
But they feel like it's negative, like it's sleazy. Like, if I'm networking, I'm not doing my job. You're a successful executive, and you're saying this is important?
Yeah, well, listen, networking brings back pre-pandemic memories. People say I have a tall personality on Zoom. That's a conversation for another time, because that sounds like there's some bias in there. I'm 5'1" and a half. I'm pretty petite. And so when I go to events, Alex, it's difficult, because it's usually I'm pushed against the bar and I have a bad glass of Chardonnay fall on me. People may give me some business cards, and I actually have trouble sort of working the room. And so what I've loved about this time in the pandemic, for those of us who have had the privilege to work from home, is that you can meet people so easily, like you and I met over LinkedIn. You had reached out. And so I don't like to think of it as networking, because, again, we all have sort of these bad memories, stereotypes, misconceptions of what networking is. I love to think about it as building authentic bridges.
Yeah.
Just reaching out and to getting to know people. And it's okay if you and I meet and we don't connect again. That's okay. It's like dating. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. It is. It's like just building. You just think about, you're just trying to build authentic relationships and friendships, and you're trying to be in service of someone and hope that they'll also be in service of you.
So, two things. One, you said you're trying to be in service to someone. Hopefully they'll be in service to you. I love that, because I always tell people, like, healthy relationships are mutually beneficial relationships.
Yes.
And so I love that you're talking like they should also be, hopefully, they're also trying to add value to your life, and it's not just one way.
Absolutely. My friend Lan Fan, who you should have on your show, she's CEO and founder of Community of 7. She taught me this idea, which I had never thought about, is that people are givers and takers. And if you are somebody who's a giver, and you're constantly in a relationship with someone who's a taker, that can really be exhausting. So to your point, you want the balance of giving and taking. This might be a year where I really need you and you give a lot in the friendship.
Yeah.
Next year I'll be showing up for you, right? And so those things go in, sometimes they swing back and forth, and that's okay.
So I want to bridge a discussion, a topic, a thought that I have not thought through completely. My wife just brought this up, and I thought it was really great. So let's see if I can do this. So my wife and I were talking yesterday, and she was like, "Isn't it funny that everyone needs their crutch?" She didn't use the word crutch, but basically everyone needs a crutch, and it's okay to have your crutch. Some people suffer from allergies, like me. I have to have an EpiPen with me, and some people they have challenges staying motivated, so they need to listen to motivational stuff. Some people need affirmation. Some people need pins for their diabetes. We all have something that we rely on. And what she said was the important thing is to understand what that something is and then not be ashamed of it.
Yes.
I was ashamed. I honestly, it's weird. Like I felt really ashamed. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta have that EpiPen. I'm gonna be that guy. But it's okay. It's what I need to be successful and be my best me. And you made me think about that when you were when you were talking about your networking, and I didn't realize you were 5'1", but like you
1.5, 1.5. Don't rob me of the half, please.
But you probably have things that you do to improve your life. Does that make sense? I'm not.
It does, yeah. I mean, we all need inspiration. We all need someone cheering for us, rooting for us. Sometimes for me, it's music. It's my children. It's coloring with them. It's playing with them. They're 7 and 9. There's nothing like kids to ground you real quick. So that's really important to me. So we all need somebody. We all need a way, I would say, to like recharge and supercharge and boost our batteries.
You are a proud mother.
Yes.
I read it. That's how I know it's real, because I read it on the internet. And I'm a bit confused. You are a senior executive and a mother? You can do that? It happens?
Alex, I hope you're being sarcastic, but yes, I can hear the sarcasm dripping, because I might have to leave this call now. Yeah, no, yeah, I can do both, right? And I've been mommy tracked too many times in my career. People ask me like, what was the most surprising thing about starting a family and also wanting to have a career is like being mommy tracked. I never thought, like, I was just naive that people's perceptions would change of me when I became a mother in the workplace. And so I'm on a mission to raise kind and inclusive human beings. Like, that's my mission. And that's also why I do this work for all of our kids.
Well, it was pretty crazy. I was watching I just got into this show called Blackish. I'm so late. I realize this.
Yes. I've not gotten into it. My brother has told me. I've watched like one or two. Yeah, it's supposed to be. Yes, I know.
So there was an episode when the mother, Rainbow Bo, she was basically saying who she's a doctor, very successful doctor, and she considered herself a doctor and a mother. And the only way to be a good mother, I guess, was to be a working, strong mother. And then she met a mother who wasn't working, and like, the whole episode basically was about like there's so many different ways to be a mother. Working, not working. Yes. And I like, so you have any thoughts on that for people who are just, I've met a number of women who are really, really anxious about becoming a mother because they want to, but they're not sure what their life would be like career-wise and so on and so forth.
Yeah, listen, I was raised by a tiger dad, rest in peace, dad. I married a tiger dad, not sure how that happened. And I'm the sloth mom. I really am. I'm the sloth mom. It certainly came true in the pandemic. So you have to do what's right for you in terms of like there's no points on the board every day. Did I show up as a good mom today? Some days I do, some days I don't. I don't show up as a great mom. And so the question is, did I show up over the course of their life as a great mother? I hope that they would take that away. And so just that kindness and empathy to say, okay, I did calls till 11 o'clock today and their bedtime is 7:30. I'm only spending 30 minutes with them, but you know what? Tomorrow I'm going to get up earlier. I'll clear my calendar for the evening. have dinner with them. And so it's just that kindness and grace that we're not going to get it right every day. But for me, it's like on the balance of my life, did I get it right?
You're amazing. Just FYI.
Thank
You're amazing.
Tell my
Right?
7 to 9-year-old that they need to.
We can send the link to the episode.
Oh,
The I mean, you're right though. It's like I think we all too often, again, yes, this is definitely in motherhood. And I think there's so many different things it applies to. You don't have to be 100% every single day, right? I love how you said over the period of the lifespan, was I there? Did I do well? Like, I think a lot of people really look down on themselves and beat themselves up if they're not on all the time. Is
because we're not Uber apps, right?
Mm.
We're not on demand 24/7. It can't be. And if I don't recharge, I'm not going to show up well for my kids. So I try to think about that.
But isn't recharging, um, sarcasm again, but isn't recharging, not focusing on what you have deemed to be important? If you're not with your kids,
Yeah.
are you saying they're less important? If you're not working
Yeah,
the job, it's less
yeah,
important?
I mean, I like to recharge with my kids. I like to watch a Disney movie. I like to color. I like to draw. There are different ways to do it. I love writing.
Mhm.
If I could write all day long, that's what I would do. For me, that's recharging. For someone else, they're like, oh my God, you want to write? Oh my God, I hate writing, right? But everyone has that thing listen, I'm on a mission to spark joy in my life.
Yeah.
And writing sparks a lot of joy for me. And so if I can do that for 30 minutes, some of the stuff will never see the light of day. No one wants to read that. That's cool. But it helped me in that moment. Like it helped me and it helped me recharge.
So I have to ask, I'm give you a quiz because you did say that you watch Disney movies with your kids. I got to see if you're really doing this
Oh,
or if
I
this
don't
is
watch
just.
enough. Oh gosh. No, no. Oh,
We'll see if this is just for the clout or if you really do it. So who do we not talk about? Who do we not talk about?
who do we not talk about? Oh, I have no idea what you're
Dis-
talking about.
it's a Disney movie. It's a Disney movie. Who do we
Oh,
not talk about? Come on, you got this.
Encantos? I don't know. Is that
Yeah.
even Disney? Yeah. Yeah.
Bruno.
Bruno. Oh yeah, we don't talk about Bruno. Sorry, yeah. We were just watching The Little Mermaid, which is an old one, but a good one. So
An oldie
we'll be
but
going
goodie.
back to some of the more classics. It's an interesting conversation for Dee and I, so I prefer they watch some of the more recent ones. But that's it.
So I know our time is starting to wrap up. Now want a random question. Little Mermaid. Is it Ursula? Ursula's the
Ursula. Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So Ursula is the quote unquote villain in
yeah.
that movie. But is she a villain? The
Or
Little
is she-
Mermaid signed a contract and she was enforcing that contract and she got beat up by the guy in charge. Yeah. I say this to say
Is she a jilted ex-boss?
I'm I'm just I what it made me think was, isn't it interesting how our perspective can change
Yeah,
over a period of time?
absolutely. Absolutely. And a lot of those villains have actually been hurt. Hurt people, right?
Oh
Most of
yeah.
them have been through something. And that's why they lash out and they become this evil person. But really, they're also hurt over something that's happened. I think about Maleficent with Angelina Jolie. We've watched that a few times. And you're like, wow, who knew that backstory? That's pretty incredible.
Which is why what you said earlier, we should be quick to give grace rather than just
Yes.
condemn them because you don't know what someone has gone through or been through. And maybe it's you who can say, look, that wasn't cool. But let's talk about this,
Yeah, and on the flip side, I will say, and I will only tolerate so much, right?
Oh
I have
yeah. Yeah.
forgiveness and grace, and then you have to protect your own mental boundaries and energy because some people need to leave their organizations and get therapy. It's not
Mhm.
cool. They need to work on themselves so they
Yeah.
can show up differently their next opportunity.
Absolutely. Look, look, there's a topic I wouldn't want to talk about right now, right here, because we don't got a lot of time. But yes, absolutely. I only have two cheeks. Can't turn. You only turn twice.
There you go. There you go.
I wanted to say thank you so much for just spending some time with us today and sharing your thoughts, ideas to help those individuals who want to progress in their careers. I want to open a space for you really quickly. is there anything that you'd like to talk about, leave with our guests? You have a book coming out soon. Anything, advice that you want to share with our guests as we wrap up?
I would just love for you to listen to the Brown Table Talk podcast, available on Apple and Spotify. It's not just for women of color, it's also for allies. And I look forward to continuing the conversation on LinkedIn. So feel free to follow me there. Thanks for having me, Alex.
Oh, thank you. Everyone, you know what time it is. Don't look back, reach back. If you found anything of value in today's talk, don't keep it to yourself. Don't say that person over there should have been here. Don't do that. Don't be that guy. Don't be that gal. Bring this content to them and share it with them and say, look, if this touched me, I know it'll touch you. So don't just look back, reach back. As always, this is Alex Tremble. Stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving. See ya. Thanks for listening to The Executive Appeal with Alex Tremble. I invite you to follow The Executive Appeal wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow me, your host, Alex Tremble, across all socials or via email for exclusive webinars, courses, and speaking engagements on continued topics of executive leadership. So until next time, stay strong, stay positive, and definitely stay moving.